I've got questions. Now, today I've been asking myself, what is wealth? What does it mean for an individual, household, a family, a nation to be wealthy? And how do we begin to understand the relationship between what is going on around us, the relationship between policies that are undertaken on our behalf, or at least that affect us, and our wealth? So let's get right into it. Now, value creation. So just to start it off, what I think this is, right? Wealth, when we talk about wealth, we think about the things that we have materially, right? Starting off with just how much money is in the bank. And then we think about, like, do I have a nice car, a big house? Do I have, all these things, nice clothes? And then it goes on and on. How do these things affect my status? My status in my social circle, my status in society. When I pull up somewhere in a Benz, that's a very different reaction, maybe, depending on where I am, right? Depending where I'm from, depending on where I live. That could be a very big statement. It could mean all kinds of things. But what's at the root of it, right? Because it seems obvious, and it seemed obvious to me too until I started thinking about it, until I started working in policy. Now, the first point I put up here is sacrifice is productive action, and we'll get back to that. The next statement is, what is the division of labor? So, Adam Smith, the father of economics, laid down this observation that has held axiomatically, right? That there's something called the division of labor. So you have resources and you have people. You have people, and Adam Smith walks in and people are working on, I think they were working on nails, right? They were producing nails. And he notices that although one person could make nails themselves, the process has been divided so that one person is kind of taking this metal and maybe straightening it out, and then another person is striking the pieces of metal into smaller bits. Someone else maybe is sharpening it somehow. I don't know the ins and outs of foundry work, right? And then the process, he noticed, had been divided up. The labor had been divided. And he makes a statement. He says the extent of the market depends on the extent of the division of labor. What does this statement mean? Why is this phrase even important, right? Why does it hold a mythical status in some way? So what they're trying to say is, you could have a process where one person does everything to produce some good, some product at the end, right? Or you can have a process whereby that task has been divided up. And so when that task is divided up, you have a process that's, now many things. Among them, the process is quicker, right? You're more specialized, right? The person just has to do a few things, or just that one thing really, really well. It doesn't have to do all kinds of things, etc. Now, that is very abstract. Let's get right into the practical of it. Now, I got this example from a colleague, and I think it's very potent. I give you $100 million, and I tell you, do Build your life with that. Do everything for yourself. Oh, you want to toast bread? Build a toaster for yourself. You want to drive? Build a car for yourself. You want a house? Build it for yourself with your own hands. You want tools to build that house? Make the tools by yourself with your own hands. You want you want clothes to wear? Oh, guess what? You're gonna have to maybe slaughter a cow and cure that hide, make that leather, clothe yourself. Most people realize that this $100 million or however much is gonna run out pretty quickly, and that you'd rather if someone else did all these different things and then you had to do just this one thing, and then you earned money and you went and bought everything else. Now, we're getting deeper into what this phrase means. The next point there, point number 4, what is specialization? So, specialization is you get into a task, you become really, really good at it. You become good to the extent that it took time and considerable practice to get good at that thing. Now, if you're specialized, and a bunch of you are specialized and you all live in proximity of each other. Now there's a guy who makes butter. Now there's a guy who makes candlesticks. Now there's a guy who makes clothes. There's a guy who makes weapons for you to hunt with. Everyone is specialized. So the extent of the market depends on the extent of the division of labor. This means it's another way to say that people are rich by virtue of how specialized the people that they're networked with, the people that they have access to, are specialized. The more that there's division of labor. Now, let me tell a story that I think really illustrated it for me, right? So, you travel to a very wealthy country. What do you notice? There's just so many things. Not only are there so many things, but so many things in there, they seem to be cheaper than they are if you are living in a poor country, right? This is a very gross generalization, but take very fancy clothes, for example. You go to a fancy store in somewhere, let me pick some capitals: Kampala, Nairobi, I think even Lagos, Accra, Kinshasa. What you will find is that the products, let's start even with the high-end products. They'll be very expensive. If you get a Louis Vuitton in Kinshasa, I mean, that Louis Vuitton get-up is going to be quite costly. But then you go off to Rome, to Geneva, to Paris, and it's cheaper, right? Now, let's go even closer to stay on the African continent. Go to South Africa, and you will see something that I don't think you will see anywhere else on the continent, which is normal seeming people, right, lining up in a Gucci store to buy luxury clothes. Now, let me put this into even closer perspective. Now, there was a time that, for example, take a 10-kilometer trip in Nairobi by Uber. I think a 10-kilometer trip might cost you right about $10, right? $10 in Kenya is probably just above 1,000 shillings. Now, I say the dollar, that's very important for comparison's sake, right? What can that Uber driver buy for $10? Well, he definitely can't buy a very nice, let's say, what's this polo shirt that has a little guy and he's playing polo on it. Can't remember. Okay, let's say Tommy Hilfiger or something very fancy. But you go down to South Africa And same Uber driver driving the same distance could probably just have to apply that distance twice before he can afford himself a very, very nice luxury shirt. And it's like, wait, how does that make sense? You would think that a wealthier country, now South Africa is wealthier than Kenya, their per capita, let me see if I can pull up their per capita GDP of South Africa. Right? The per capita GDP of South Africa in 2023, according to the World Bank, was $5,747. Right? That means on average, the average South African earned just about 5,000 or just under $6,000 in that year. Right? Now let's check the per capita for Kenya. No, wait. No. I don't want the PPP. I just want per capita first. So, all right, let's take that back. I think that source was wrong because I went directly to the World Bank website and they have South Africa at $6,022 for 2023 and Kenya at $1,952. So what is that in Kenya shillings? $1,952, let's see, exchange rate, Kenya and the dollar. So if you have 1952, so the average Kenyan was earning 252,784 shillings every year on 9th, but the exchange rate on 9th May 2015. Now let's check what it was for the average South African. So the average South African earned $777,000. I mean shillings, right? That's about $6,000. So how now the average? That's how much the average South African earned that year, right? A South African can ply a route on an Uber as an Uber driver, earn about, if he earns $20, maybe it's like a 15 something kilometer trip, he can buy a very nice shirt. Let's say Woolworths, right? Now, Woolworths is a clothing outlet that has outlets both in South Africa. It's South African, I believe, and they have outlets in Nairobi. And most people will tell you that the clothes in Nairobi are more expensive than they are in South Africa from Woolworths, right? And they'll tell you furthermore, and that's the same for Mr. Price, that's the same for all these other outlets, right? And then the clothes that are also sold in Nairobi are also it's like out of season. So the clothes that are out of season in South Africa, they come to Kenya. So how do you make sense of that? Now I need my glasses so I can see this a little bit, clearer. So what Adam Smith would say is that it's because the reason that South Africa is as wealthy as it is compared to Kenya, right? Almost 6 times wealthier, right? Okay, 5 times, right? What is happening in Nairobi? What's happening in Kenya? So it is because South Africans are more specialized. You're going to find South Africans doing more specialized tasks than you will in Nairobi. That's what Adam Smith would say. He would say, look, the extent of the market depends on the extent of the division of labor. This in South Africa has more division of labor than Kenya. Now, how do you put that in another way? In Kenya, if you want to shoot a movie, it's gonna be extremely expensive. You know why? Like, say, you need a makeup artist, you need people to build props, you need sound engineers, you need people who understand lighting for cinema, you need, people who know how to cameras, cinematography. How many people are you gonna find that are specialized enough in one task so that number one, they do it really, really well, and number two, they can get paid for it? The market just isn't big enough to support it. And that's why historically you would have found that, before technology reached where it is, right? But even you would have found that South Africa produces higher quality television. They have better writers. They have better producers. That whole thing is because of the division of labor. There's more specialization in South Africa than there is in Kenya. And the counterintuitive thing is that they're wealthier and then things are cheaper. Food is cheaper. All these things, are life. You can have a higher quality life in South Africa living on average. And that's so not only are you earning more, that's $6,000, but you can stretch it more. So how do we bring this home? There's two things. I, as an individual, one way that I get wealthier is through specialization. One way that we get wealthier as a group is through the division of labor. So the more of us need to be specialized. When more of us are specialized, we are all wealthier. Now, what does that mean? I get to buy the fruit of your labor. You buy the fruit of my labor. And we enjoy that. So when I'm buying value, right? What I'm really buying is I'm buying a piece of specialization. I buy his piece of specialization. Oh man, you specialize in Gucci shirts. I'm buying that. Oh man, you specialize in scripts. I'm buying. Oh man, you specialize in comedy. I'm buying that. Oh, look at this guy. They specialize in songwriting. They spend so much time just learning how to write the most beautiful songs. Now I can buy a piece of that too. Oh man, look at that. This guy specializes in coaching. He can coach me to get more money, move my career forward. Oh man, this guy, he's so specialized in motor production, right? Producing motor vehicles or something. And you go on and on and on. So that brings us then to productivity, efficiency, effectiveness. Point number 5 here. Productivity, output over input. So I'm doing something, I'm producing some output, I'm productive. But the next question is, how efficient am I? Efficiency, useful output over total input. How much of my how did I use up the resources that I had, right? How did I deploy them? How did I you talk about optimizing the way that you use your resources. Now, the more specialized we are, the more efficient we can be, right? That's how I understand it, right? And the beauty of these things, the beauty of learning is you come back and you rehash and you revise. Effectiveness. Now, I can't just be efficient at whatever. There's got to be, that whatever comes out has got to be really, really close to my intentions. Now, I put the last point here, point number 8, effective demand, because I wanted to finally close by saying that there is a relationship between, if I can sell what people actually might want to buy. So I need to know that there is a willingness among the buyers to buy, and there is an ability. So they got the money and they want to buy this thing. They want to buy this movie that I'm going to produce, this Gucci shirt, this Woolworths, right? And I named these big name brands for a reason. There's a reason why I didn't have like small examples like just bread, because that it really brings that point home. So we are all entrepreneurs because we're selling our labor in the market. We're looking for where the demand is so we can supply to it. I'm hoping that this employer has both the willingness to buy my labor and the ability. Now, willingness will depend on, like, can I do for him what he needs to be done? Ability, am I able to do for him what he needs to be done? Right? He's got to be willing and able to purchase what I'm selling. So that's where it sort of comes full circle. You can't just specialize in anything. You can't just divide labor willy-nilly, right? It's got to respond to or anticipate demand. And that's where the entrepreneurial action, or the set of entrepreneurial actions comes into play, because entrepreneurship can be defined as how well do I understand and can I anticipate demand and respond to it, right? By organizing resources, inputs in a productive way, right? So you have your resource, all that stuff that's not alive in the human being, and you hire a number of people, you divide them in the task, you have a production line from beginning to end, and you say, you organize it according to something that's happening in the market. You're trying to respond to demand. So should we go to the next one? Yeah, we are rich because we can enjoy the division of labor of others, right? Households, firms, nations are wealthy because of the division of labor. All right, well, I think that's pretty good enough. Thank you for tuning in. I hope this is helpful. We are trying to get on a journey towards economic literacy, to understand the relationship between what we do, the activities we are engaged in, and what's happening in the world, right? What's happening in the world of policy making, what's happening in the market, organizing ourselves to respond to the market. Thank you. Cheers. Share this with someone. Let's have a chat. Post your questions. Give me feedback. I'm trying to find clearer and clearer ways to explain and to think through this, to understand this. If we got it at the tips of our fingers, we can become more responsible citizens, etc., etc. Thank you and good night.